How's it going, everyone? The One MFP here. I hope you're all having a pleasant day. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're staying safe. Today I come to you with yet another Hua Chenyu reaction, and this time around it is to bullfighting. Some of you might be thinking to yourselves right now, but Matt, why bullfighting? You've already reacted to bullfighting. So firstly, I'd like to take the time to thank you guys who have taken the time to watch that video and any of my other prior videos. My words don't do justice to just how grateful I am for your time and appreciation. Secondly, much to my excitement, it's been brought to my attention that Hua Chenyu recently released a music video for bullfighting. And up to this point, I have not seen any Hua Chenyu music videos. I've only been reacting to his performances, and those performances have been quite dynamic and elaborate, you know, from top to bottom, whether we're talking about lighting, stage presence, vocal delivery, the actual lyrics of the songs. Everything is just so carefully and intricately put together, and it gives you this really wholesome experience, and it's impressive to see what Hua Chenyu can do with a performance. So with that said, I'm very excited and intrigued to see what he will do here with bullfighting. If you've missed my first reaction to bullfighting, which was just to a live performance at the Mars concert, I would suggest going to watch that video. I'll have a link pop up right now on the screen, but I'll also have it in the description box. There you'll find my initial reaction to the song and my breakdown of the song's lyrics and my interpretation of those lyrics. So if you're interested in that, the link is down below. In this video, I'll be paying more attention to the actual music video and relating it to my thoughts on the lyrics as well. So without further ado, let's get right into this reaction. Hua Chenyu bullfighting. I love this as much as the first time. That Marilyn Manson vibe. Man, that was absolutely beautiful. I mean, the song itself is absolutely gorgeous. I have a very similar appreciation for it now as I did the first time in terms of just the overall sound, but this music video just takes it to a whole nother level. Much like he was able to take the meaning of the song and really extract that meaning and demonstrate it on a live stage and turn it into something very real for the audience through his live performance at the Mars concert in my prior bullfighting reaction. He does something very similar here with the music video in, the lighting itself. We have that strobing red light. We have the contrast between the red to the red with the kind of evil side of things or the darker side of things, and then you have the white for more of a pure side of things, and we really end on that note, right? Hua Chenyu wakes up and he's got this white background, it's empty, and you get the sense that him waking up kind of represents that all of this was kind of this internal struggle, which is something that has been a major theme in some of the performances I've seen thus far. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves and jump to the end here. There's a lot going on in this video, a lot of symbolism that really sticks out to me, so I'm gonna speak on that. But before doing so, I do want to talk about the lyrics very briefly. I don't want to get too far deep into them because I've already talked about them, but I think some of it is very important to this video, and mainly just the general importance of the storytelling in this song to how I interpret it is what I want to mention here. You have two halves of the song where the first half it really seems to be focused on bullfighting itself, and it's focusing on how the matadors are of positive significance. And the way I really saw it that way was through the verbiage that we see in the verses. So what I mean by that is words like concealed strategies, triumph, celebration. We see magnificence, we see chivalry. Overall, they're talking about bullfighting as this noble sport, and they're talking about the actual bullfighters as these people you respect and praise and look up to. But in the latter half of the song, we see things switch a bit and the attention is brought to the bull, whereas in the first half of the song, the bull was defined as a beast with, I think there's a mention of devil in there. They're talking about his ferociousness. So basically, the bull is made to seem like this adversary that you need to conquer, whereas the bullfighters are really these people that you want to see triumph. With the second half of the song, the attention shifts over to the bull, and we're kind of seeing the bull being victimized here in this context, and the bullfighters kind of seem like the bad guys. They come off as the actual beasts in that part of the story. So as we get to that half of the song, we see a shift in perspective on the same event. So what I interpret when I hear or see this is, you know, there's different perspectives to the same events, and depending on which lens you're going to look at that event through, there's going to be a different impact on you. It's going to have a different effect on you. So furthermore, much like I said in my prior Hua Chenyu reaction, which was to 7 personalities, perspective plays a major role in the song. And here in this song, in my opinion, we're talking about how that perspective is going to shape our lives. And much of what I see in this music video is that question of who will we become? And it's based on what will we see, how will it affect us, what role will it play in who we become. So now to bring more attention to the actual visuals depicted in the music video, the first thing that caught my attention was the stadium and the bulls. We have the bulls walking around the upper bowl of the stadium as opposed to having them in the center of the stadium at the floor level, if you will. So, you know, what's interesting to me about that is that upper bowl, or basically anywhere outside of the center of the stadium, that's supposed to be for the fans or the audience. So to have the bulls there was definitely something that caught my attention. But then secondly, as we move on to the center of the stadium to see what spectacle is going on, if you will, we have the bull, we have the bullfighter. And what's interesting about it is the bullfighter is more of a robot, whereas the bull seems to be more, you know, true to life, if you will. And we had a close-up of its face where we saw its eyes, we saw it wounded a bit. So I think already at this point there's this separation between reality and something a bit more fictional. Then following that, we have this depiction of the audience that also furthers that point. You know, it's a very homogeneous audience, very much they all appear the same. They seem to have painted on smiles. It's all very unrealistic, if you will. So with that said, I think there's some foreshadowing going on here in that, you know, in one sense, the viewer is seeing these smiles, so that may be seen in a certain type of way, and you have these lyrics accompanying it that makes it seem like the matador is the good guy here. But I think at this stage, we're already getting that foreshadowing of this is the less emotional side of things. This is the more idealized side of things. So it's a very interesting way to set that idea up. And then we progress further in the song, and we have this contrast between the red strobing lights and Hua Chenyu also singing in more of a bright lit area, where maybe not bright, but it's white lighting essentially. So there's that contrast between red and white that we also saw in his performance, and that really also brought out that contrast that we see in the song in terms of the first half and the second half. Now, aside from that contrast in lighting, before actually transitioning into that second half of the song where we have a transition in perspective as well, there's a lot going on in the music video to help that transition as well. The main thing that we have on our attention span at this point is the defeat of the bull. And that defeat is portrayed in that animated style, the same one we were introduced to with the audience. And following that, we have a 3D shot of like a heart pumping. And I think that's meant for us to really start to relate a little bit more to the bull, because following that, we have the transition to the more realistic setting where the bull is kind of laying in its own blood. Once we get that visual, we move over out of the arena and we go into the streets. And we have these humans that aren't like the ones we see in the arena, right? They're not animated. They seem a little bit more realistic. And they're all going upwards, and at a certain point they turn into bulls themselves. To me, all of that is to convey that the bulls are living beings themselves. And to me, that does help transition into a more empathetic view on this whole situation, where we're really feeling for the bull. We're now seeing the bull as a victim as opposed to just this thing that you're supposed to conquer for sport. Now that really coincides with this line here. After nurturing the original sin with his own hands, he now seeks to destroy it. I'm getting this sense of regret out of that line. And what's interesting about the music video, at the same time as that's going on, we transition from a black on red background to a red on black background where the characters are portrayed in red. I think in one sense that's made to portray the blood splattering. I think that's an important theme here, because immediately following that we have this shot of the robotic matador looking down with the blood splattering up, and he's got the blood on him, kind of to signify that the bull's bloods are on his hands, you know, just that actual expression of you did this. And that's immediately followed up with more realistic shots where we see glaciers falling. I think it was glaciers, and then we have a polar bear trying to stand on ice, but the ice is breaking as well. So we have some environmental climate change issues being brought about in this video here. The way I see that is we could take what happened here in this arena, you know, between this bull and this bullfighter, and we could relate it to human behavior outside of the arena. We could look at how we may choose to behave and how that may impact our environment and the living beings outside of ourselves that live in that environment. When we act the way we do, we may not be fully thinking about the negative externalities, and that's what we have portrayed here. You know, with the bull and the bullfighter, we have the bull being conquered for sport. We have the bull being depicted as this bad guy that you need to conquer, and that's why this audience is all into it. That's why they're all ecstatic when it gets conquered. But if you take the time to look at things from a different perspective, if you choose to sympathize with the bull, now you're starting to see things in a completely different perspective. And with the matador, I think that's what happens. You know, he starts to feel that regret because he starts to realize what he has done. We're living beings, but so is the bull, so is the polar bear that we saw on the ice. The environment is something we have to protect, not only for ourselves, but for the other living beings that we share this planet with. And then we pretty much end on the bull kind of going upwards, eventually disintegrating and reassembling into a human being. And I think that's to bring us back to this idea, or at least to really drive home the idea that you know, we're both living things. Whether you choose to see it that way or not, factually, we're both living things. The reason you may have a bias towards humans is because you are human. So with that in mind, much like I said at the beginning of the analysis portion of this video, perspective just plays a huge part in the lyrics of this song and in what's being depicted as well. And the very last shot before transitioning out of the general video into the actual ending, where Hua Chenyu is kind of just on this platform surrounded by nothing at all, just a white background, a white platform, and he's dressed in all white as well. We have the matador just looking down in what appears to be regret. You know, he seems to really have come to this understanding that he did something that he did not want to do. He came to have a shift in perspective. He started to sympathize with the bull that you know, he defeated. I think that all stems from that midpoint of the song where he had this shift in perspective from seeing the bull as a beast that he needed to conquer into more of a living thing, you know, something he can relate to in some way. And to have us transition into that close-up of Hua Chenyu opening up his eyes from a laid down position has me thinking this is him kind of, you know, dreaming. This is what's going on. This is his internal dialogue. And within that internal dialogue, we see that separation of two sides, you know, two perspectives, similar to what we had in Seven Personalities, where we kind of had growth, and through that growth at different stages, we had different versions of himself. Here in this song, we have different versions of him as well. If he is the matador, on one end, he may be, you know, thinking of the audience, and he may be thinking of crowd pleasing. But then on the other side of things, once the attention is brought to the bull or the subject matter, things may change, you know. He may be more empathetic to the subject matter. He may relate more to what he's trying to conquer. I think that could be very symbolic in multiple ways. One way that immediately comes to mind is in trying to be a crowd pleaser, you may start to lose yourself, and you may eventually do something that you regret, something that takes you away from what you believed yourself to be or from what you want to be. You know, much like Seven Personalities, how we saw him grow, and through that growth he gained things, but he also lost things. You know, he may have lost a certain innocence, he may have lost certain parts of him. I think we get something very similar here. There's this certain element of regret attached to this perceived ignorance, the things he didn't know, the things he didn't see then the way he sees them now. So all in all, what this song and this music video really brings to my attention is this idea of perspective and how much it affects us, the things we think, the things we live. It's going to have a major influence on your every action. I think this idea of introspection is also a very important theme here because it allows him to bring a better focus to who he wants to be and what he deems to be positive and negative. That introspection is something that helped him get out of a dark place in 7 Personalities. Here in Bullfighting, it's what helps him relate more to the bull and, relate more to the environment. Essentially, it's what helps him bring better focus to the overall impacts of his actions. And furthermore, it's going to give him better perspective on how he wants to act and who he wants to be. And yeah, that pretty much summarizes what I thought of this song and music video. I enjoyed this a lot. Much like his performances, there's a lot going on in this music video. It's very elaborate, very intricately put together. So I enjoyed this a lot. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. I always love hearing what you guys have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. I always appreciate the support. And I will see you all next time. Have a great day, y'all.